Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's make a start. Welcome to this webinar, Help I've Been Hacked. For those who don't know me, my name is Charlie, and I'm the head of cybersecurity here at Ramsack. Today, I'm specifically going to talk to you about what you should do if you suspect you've been hacked or you become the victim of a cyber breach or attack at work. And just a reminder before we start as well that this webinar is being recorded. Got quite a short webinar today. I'll be trying to keep this to about 20 minutes, plus some time for questions. I do have a lot of information to share with you, but I promise I'm going to keep it punchy. This isn't a technical talk. It's about what anyone in the organization should do in the first few minutes of a suspected breach. I will start with a little bit of theory, and then I'll move on to explain what we're seeing in our cyber team so far in 2026 in terms of the threat landscape. And I'll walk you through some real world examples of breaches. We'll move on to how to spot if you've been the victim of a cyber attack, what are the signs to look out for. And then most importantly for today's webinar, we will review a 3-step response plan, which you should follow if you suspect you've been hacked. And we'll look at what not to do and why. Finally, I'll discuss what an incident response plan or IRP is and why your organization should have one. And at the end of the webinar, I'll be sharing some free useful resources you can take away with you, as well as a special offer on some incident response plan writing services if you'd like help producing one for your organization. And as we progress through the webinar, if any questions pop up into your head, feel free to put them in the question section in Teams, and I'll do my best to answer them at the end. So I want to start by spending just a few minutes thinking about cybersecurity measures in the context of left of boom and right of boom. And this is terminology that's frequently being used in the cyber community to help articulate the difference switches to the left of boom and reactive measures to the right of the boom, with the boom being the breach itself. So on the left of boom, we have things such as governance and compliance, so putting policies in place to govern how employees should interact with company systems and data, outlining people's obligations and adhering to required legislation and compliance requirements. End user security training, obviously of critical importance, but certainly not a magic wand. Attack surface reduction, which includes things like regular patching, locking down access to certain countries, putting device compliance in place, enabling multi-factor authentication. Vulnerability visibility, so knowing where your gaps are and actively resolving them. And then, of course, backups, so ensuring your critical data is backed up regularly. To the right of boom, so post-breach or as the breach happens, we have cyber monitoring, so detecting when that breach happens and then containing the threat as soon as possible. And this can often make the difference then between a breach being a contained event or a business-wide crisis. The incident response plan, do all your employees know what to do when a breach hits? And I'll talk about this in more detail later. And the business continuity plan, which can be linked to the IRP, may be invoked following an incident. So what do you do in the event of a business or system interruption to be able to continue to operate your business? And I believe that organizations typically will more readily invest in these left of boom preventative items. I think they're a bit more tangible, they're a bit more visible. So you can put a physical policy in place, you can execute training, you can see vulnerabilities and you can patch them. It's very real, so you've got some really tangible output. To the right of boom though, it feels less tangible and you don't see evidence of these things until boom happens. And obviously breaches don't happen every day, hopefully, but when they do, they can hit it really hard if you don't have the right of boom measures in place. And unfortunately, we do see this all the time for clients who don't put them in place. When they get hit, it's already too late, and the cleanup process is made so much more difficult. My last point on this slide is that cyber isn't just about buying the latest tools or technology. It's about disciplined governance to the left of boom, and then rapid containment to the right of boom. And the clients that we see that navigate cyber incidents really successfully are the ones who treat cybersecurity as an operational discipline rather than just a bunch of IT features that need implementing. And that means that when a breach occurs, they become events and not crises. Okay, so you'll be pleased. That's the theories done. Theories out the way. So let's talk about what we're seeing in the cyberspace today. Well, across our client base at Ramstack, we've seen a fourfold increase in the number of cyber breaches across our clients in 2026 so far compared with 2025. The number one vector of attack still remains identity compromise, so that's where cybercriminals take control of your business email account, such as Microsoft 365 or your Google Workspace. And why is that? Well, there's a couple of main reasons. So first, the barrier to entry for cybercriminals to become proficient at attacks has been significantly lowered, and this is following the industrialization of hacking tools and the growth of AI. It means that it makes it much easier for lower skilled criminals to use these tools to compromise organizations. So on the dark web, there are now marketplaces for aspiring cybercriminals to purchase tools to make hacking easy. They don't need any deep technical knowledge, everything is for sale. There are plenty of SMEs for cybercriminals to attack, and SMEs typically have less mature cyber controls compared to large enterprises, typically due to financial or compliance reasons, which makes SMEs a really hot target. And identity attacks are easier than ever, due to kits being so available and humans being the major variable in security. I have a couple of examples of real-life attacks for you. The first one, easily the most common attack vector we see at the moment, is phishing emails, and these are sent from a known contact who's been compromised. So typically, this will be where a vendor in your supply chain has been compromised. The attacker will send a malicious email with a link or attachment from that compromised account. The emails are often well crafted or seem innocuous at a first glance, and because the victim receives the email from someone they interact with regularly, their guard is already down. And if the attacker recognizes they've compromised someone in a finance role, or there are invoices going to or from the mailbox, then they may attempt the classic new bank details or intercept an invoice attack. And just remember, if you receive an email like this out of the blue with no context or with an urgency that kind of feels off, stop and verify it via another method, such as picking up the phone and dialing a known contact number. And do this even if this is someone that you know and you interact with regularly. The next example I want to show you is really important to share. So it's an attack vector we've now seen executed successfully in 4 separate instances across our clients in the last 2 weeks. And it's called ClickFix. This screenshot is a real life example. So this is a real life website that was compromised that a client was using and that they interact with this website regularly. So already the victim's guard's down. One day they go to visit the vendor's website and they notice this captcha pop up here. And well, that's fine. You know, we all get served captchas sometimes, so nothing particularly new here. So you go to click on the I'm not a robot checkbox. And what happens normally here is it whirs for a little bit, maybe for a few moments, and then you get through to the website, or you get the pop-up to click on the traffic lights on motorbikes in the tiles or wherever it is. But instead of that, you're served with this pop-up. Now, I'm sure there are some of you on this webinar who are looking at that and will immediately go, hang on a moment. If I press the Windows and R key, that's the shortcut to open the Run application on my desktop. Now, why would the website want me to open this on my desktop to execute something locally on it? And you would probably think, well, this doesn't feel right. And you'd then either leave the website or you maybe even try and contact the vendor via a known method and warn them of a potential website compromise. But I would bet for the vast majority of people, you wouldn't know what that Windows and R key does. And you wouldn't know what this Run application that's just popped up on the screen does. And you certainly wouldn't know that when you press Control V, what you're pasting into the input field and hit enter on is actually malicious code that's been copied to your clipboard to download and then install a malicious executable directly from the web. And just like that, that device is now compromised. And it could be doing anything, and we've seen a real mix. It could be stealing your active Microsoft login sessions so they can now get into your email. It could be stealing browser credentials so they've got access to your applications. It could be executing malicious code or installing a remote access tool so they've now got access to your device. And those very simple steps have just bypassed many of the preventative measures that organizations rely on. And this is the game of cybercrime. The attackers are constantly looking for new ways to get around preventative measures. It absolutely doesn't mean that those preventive measures are worthless, but it does highlight the importance of having robust cybersecurity protection methods. And we'll be putting out a public service announcement communication about this particular attack we're seeing at the moment because of how many occurrences we've seen. There can be many possible signs that something is wrong and that you've just been hacked, and I'll talk you through probably some of the most obvious ones. So an initial sign of account compromise might be someone telling you they've received an email from you that you didn't send, or someone telling you they've been sending you emails all day and you haven't seen anything in your inbox, which might be a sign of malicious mailbox rule creation, something like that. There may be other signs that are more visible to you on your desktop as you're working. So, for example, often the first sign of a ransomware attack is if you go to try and access your files and they are all encrypted. So when you try and open them, nothing happens. They will usually be accompanied by a message or a pop-up that explains you've just been hit by ransomware and then requesting you to pay to decrypt and access your files again. And I hope that none of you ever have to experience this in the wild because this is quite scary. You may also get an alert pop up on your device telling you there's a virus present and you need to take action. Sometimes that may or may not be a scam, depending on the pop-up. The spelling of lose on this one is a bit dodged, so I guess this is a scam. But you may also notice strange things happening on your desktop, like applications or scripts opening and closing quickly, or your mouse moving without you controlling it. There are many different signs of a potential compromise, but you're really looking out here for things that are out of the ordinary for you, things you haven't seen before. And I would say, if in doubt, it's always safer to report it than do nothing and assume that everything is okay. All right, so what do you actually do if you've identified that you might have been hacked? I've broken it down into 3 really simple steps that anyone can follow. So first off, we have contain. The most important thing you need to do first is isolate your device. And this means removing its network connectivity so you can contain any potential threat to just your device. You can do this by putting your device into flight safe mode. If you click the network sound battery tab in the taskbar, which is in the bottom right of your screen, and then the flight mode option will come up there. If your device has a cable in the back of it that looks like this is an Ethernet cable, network cable, then at this point you should also pull that out. But just make sure if you do have a cable, when you pull it out, you also put the device into flight safe mode so that it doesn't just switch over to Wi-Fi. It's really important that you do not turn off the device. We want to preserve the device. We want to see if there's anything that we can recover from it, and also to preserve logs on the device, which we may need for forensics post-breach. If you have servers and network kit, then someone on site will also need to know what to do to stop a threat to those devices. The next thing you do is contact your IT team immediately. This may be Ramsack, or it may be an internal IT contact. You keep trying as well until you get through to someone who acknowledges what you are reporting and takes action. This is especially important because email compromise or account compromise won't be stopped by performing the contain actions I just talked about. That can only be stopped by your IT team. Once IT know, also contact your line manager so they can report it up the chain and invoke your organization's incident response plan. And at this point, I must emphasize how important it is to complete these first 2 steps of the plan as quickly as possible. Every minute counts when it comes to a breach. If you go back a few years, cyber criminals might sit and observe accounts over a period of hours, maybe even days before taking action. But nowadays, we typically see that action being taken by criminals or even by bots or even humans within minutes of a breach. Therefore, containing it as soon as possible can be the result between it being a minor event or a major crisis. And then last step, record. So write down a record of what's happened. What did you see on your screen? What did you click or open? When did it happen? Do you think anyone else could have been impacted? Did you plug anything into the device before you noticed signs of a breach? Share this with your IT team and line manager to aid the investigation. And then await further instruction from your manager. Please don't attempt to help to resolve the issue or interact with your device or any emails. There are, of course, a couple of things you definitely should not do when you suspect you may have been breached. So number one, as I said earlier, do not turn off the device. You might think you're helping turning it off, but the key thing here is we want to isolate it from the network so nothing can spread, but we don't want to turn it off. We want to preserve evidence for forensics. We want to ensure that logs are kept, and also it may still be possible to recover the device or information that's stored on it. Please do not try to fix it yourself. Don't try to delete malicious emails or infected files or attempt other methods to try and resolve it. Leave it to the experts, and you might end up making things worse or interfere with the recovery of data or forensics efforts accidentally. And finally, do not keep it to yourself. I guarantee you the problem will not just go away by itself. And as we discussed earlier, the longer we leave a breach, the exponentially worse it will get. If we can contain quickly, we can significantly minimize the impact to your organization. You should share information with your line manager and colleagues so they know to look out for anything similar on their devices. And it's really important that you don't be embarrassed if you're caught in a cyber breach. We're all human at the end of the day, and cyber criminals know this. All the preventative measures in the world will not be enough to protect your organization 100%. It's much more important we find out about a breach and we close it quickly. So the Incident Response Plan, or IRP, and this may also be known differently in your organization. It may be known as something like the Breach Response Plan or BRP. But fundamentally, it's a really important document that should be written and understood by all members of the senior leadership team so they know what to do in the event of a cyber breach. And it's important that this is a shared responsibility of the leadership team. It's not something that's delegated to one person. It's typically split into two parts: steps for employees and then steps for the leadership team. So first, what should employees do in the event of a breach? And this should be kept to one page. It should be shared and made readily available and visible to all members of the organization, and then verified that everyone understands it. And this is essentially your three-step response plan around how to respond, who to tell, and what to do next. The next part then is for the senior leadership team, and this is a bit more fleshed out. So just like there is guidance for your employees and what to do, there needs to be specific guidance for the senior leadership team members. This may include things like who's leading the meetings, how data is gathered, how business continuity can be assured, and communication plans for staff, clients, and then governing bodies like the Information Commissioner's Office, or ICO. And this is especially important because some breaches have to be reported to regulators within strict timeframes. So, for example, the ICO requires you to report a breach within 72 hours if you're identifying it. And this is another reason why speed of response matters too. There should be a section for record keeping, so you can keep a running log of what's happened and how your organization has responded. Guidance for the internal cyber meeting agendas is recommended so that you ensure everything is covered. And this is especially important to have defined ahead of time, as vital things can often get overlooked or missed in the heat of a moment. And then finally, anything specific in relation to a breach for your organization. So for example, details of any break glass accounts and how to use them, instructions for how to cut servers off the network and who the admins of internal systems are, and things like that. Having all of this information available in one document shared with the whole senior leadership team is really important, but so is testing it. Your incident response plan should be tested at least annually by the leadership team. You play out dummy scenarios, you identify improvements, and as things in your organization change or as you identify gaps. You might now be thinking, okay, that's quite a lot of information to take in. Where do I even start with building an incident response plan for my organization, or do I even know if my organization has one? Well, fear not, we have loads of useful information available for you on our website. So if you want to, you can scan this code in the top right-hand corner. That will take you to a document which explains how you should respond to a breach and how you can build an incident response plan and what that looks like. And then the QR code at the bottom So we have some breach response stickers that we can send to your organization to put on the walls around your office or meeting rooms so staff know what to do in the event of a breach, and that's what we've done at Ramsack. So you can scan that code, download a copy, print it off yourself if you want, or you can ask your relationship manager and we can send you a load of stickers free of charge. And don't worry if you don't manage to scan the code now, we'll send out slides and these codes again. And finally, if you would like any assistance writing an incident response plan and making sure it's tailored appropriately to your organization, we would be more than happy to help. We're running a special promotion on incident response plan writing. I've said that too many times, until the end of April this year. So if you'd like more information, then please just reach out to your relationship manager. And again, if you would like any help testing your IRP or business continuity plan, then do reach out to your RM as well. They'd be more than happy to talk through some of the scenarios that we can run for your organization. Otherwise, that's it from me. Nice, short, snappy one. And hope you have the rest of your good rest of your day. Thank you very much.